They handed me the sonar headset on my first night like it was a talisman. "Don't lose that," Chief Reynolds said, half joke, half command. "If you hear ghosts, tell the CO." I laughed then. Later, nights would taste like metal and stale coffee, and the only ghosts we believed in were old mechanical failures and missed welds. The boat was the USS Argus, Block 3 Virginia class, hull number they never used in stories. A long, narrow animal of steel that lived by vacuum and pressure. I signed aboard as a sonar tech when I was 29. We were under the North Atlantic on a winter patrol in 2033, 300 meters down, with ice squalls overhead and NATO task groups skirting the ice line. The crew was 72 souls, a close, loud organism with its own jokes and rituals. We ran in 6-on, 6-off watches. We had perks, hot chow, decent bunks, and a roving supply of sarcasm. We had rules, too, rules that kept us alive. There were 2 rules that mattered to me then. Rule 1, never reply to an unknown signal unless ordered by the captain. Rule 2, if you log anything outside the normal maintenance schedule, put it on the anomalous ledger and notify the XO in person. Those rules sat next to the ship's safety poster in the control room like prayer cards. Later, I wished we'd treated them as such. The first maintenance report came like a cough in the night. It was 0218 watch. The sonar room hummed its usual green. Outside, the ocean pressed quiet against our hull. I was half asleep with the headset on when a ping came through. Not acoustic, digital. A small packet on the ship's internal network, flagged as maintenance update. The log was routine. Bow plane actuator bearing, increased vibration at 0230. Recommend immediate replacement. It was signed with an unreadable call sign and timestamped 2033-1112. 051234 UTC. I blinked. Our boat's clock read 2033-1112 0218 UTC. I assumed someone had entered the wrong time zone. I flagged it to the petty officer in charge and we made a ticket. They shrugged. "Admin glitch. File it." We did. I remember the way my pen felt heavier that night. The ticket was routed to engineering. No big deal. 2 days later, during a practice emergency dive, the bow plane actuator failed exactly at 0230 local time. Not a gradual fault, a grinding snap. The ballast team fought to keep depth. We avoided a crash. 2 of the crew banged their heads on ladders. I logged my report visibly, hands shaking. The maintenance ticket came back in my inbox the next morning, marked closed, performed replacement 2033-1112 053010 UTC. I went to sleep thinking about incorrect timestamps and tired sailors. The XO made us an ice cream run for morale the next day. We pretended the near miss was a story for the miss. We almost kissed the seabed. We laughed. But later, when the watch officer asked aloud who had authored the first maintenance report, a silence filled that room like water. No one claimed it. Once you notice a ripple, you see the tide. A month into the patrol, the reports kept coming. They arrived as small, unsigned maintenance packets, nothing flashy. Bearing replacements, seal failures, loose bolts, coolant alarms. They were always precise, clinical. They arrived in the middle of watches, on the intership LAN, then vanished after routing. Each one bore a timestamp that trailed our present by hours or sometimes days. Each one foretold a failure we would soon experience. At first, we treated them as weird predictive maintenance. The boat's predictive analytics suite was advanced. Maybe a machine learning daemon had misrouted a forecast. We joked about the machine having better intuition than the engineers. But the reports were always right. One entry, port shaft coupling, microfracture propagation detected at location node 3B. If unaddressed, the coupling will fail within 36 hours. We scoured nodes, did die checks, did vibration analyses. Everything came back nominal. The coupling held. 48 hours later, at 14:02, the port shaft coupling splintered with a sound like a tree breaking. The engine room flooded with oil mist. We were lucky. The emergency patch worked, but the coupling was toast. I started printing the messages. I kept them under my mattress in a manila envelope. There were 5 that week. Each one followed the pattern, an unsigned maintenance order with a future timestamp, and then the failure, precise as a scalpel. Whoever or whatever authored them knew components by part number, knew our crew by name. The file headers contained author hashes that looped back to accounts never created on the ship. Every route path ran through internal addresses that resolved to future/maintenance, a directory that didn't exist yesterday, but seemed to now. I took one of the files to Chief Reynolds. He stared at it without blinking. He smelled of cigarettes and diesel. He carried a look men take when they are deciding what kind of trouble they will let happen. "You tell anyone?" he asked. "Who do I tell?" I asked. "XO?" He exhaled. "You bring it to the XO, you bring it to the captain, you bring it up the ladder. They'll lock everything down. Classified files, maybe Navy labs, people who don't like surprises. Best answer is to keep the logs internal and fix the shit before it kills someone. That's what I would do." His voice told me what to do. The chief is a practical thing. He keeps boats alive. I trusted him by instinct. We listened to the messages. We fixed the issues. We saved people and avoided catastrophe. The boat named us lucky. The XO enforced silence. Officially, the ship's AI, Hermes, had predictive maintenance features. Engineers explained it away. Hermes is learning usage patterns across the fleet, but the pattern continued even after Hermes was isolated. The files still arrived. We created a procedure. It would be a rule, a method to manage the impossible. Rule 3, ad hoc. If a maintenance packet arrives with a future timestamp, authenticate the packet, print a hard copy, tag the part immediate priority, report only to the chief and the XO in person. We followed the rule once, twice, then something changed. One night, a packet came with a timestamp 6 days into the future and an instruction: replace starboard ballast manifold pilot valve within 24 hours. If unavailable, manual bypass procedure A7 will prevent catastrophic overpressure event. It had an attached checklist labeled Safeguard A7. Attach cuff to numbered flange sensors, depressurize manifold 2, cycle pressure manifold at 0.7 bar, log manifold stab 14-7. When I brought it to the Chief Reynolds and the XO's face went flat. "Where did you get that?" he asked. "It just arrived on the internal network. No author, no IP route I can trace." He swallowed and told the engineering watch, "Do it. Replace the valve tomorrow." There was a low murmur. The engineers complained about spares. We did it. The valve replacement worked like a charm. At 11:41 the next day, while the ship was at exercise depth, the starboard manifold would have seen a micro shudder that, if the bypass had not been engaged, would have resonated and produced a harmonic they hadn't put into the stress model. The consequence? Acoustic signature escalation, pipe whip, potential hull microfracture. The captain later said we had dodged an engineering bullet. No one ever asked where the instruction came from. We had done the right thing. The ship was intact. The captain slept easier. Then the maintenance packets got personal. They stopped being pure parts and bolts inventory and began including crew notes, warnings about people. Petty Officer Lane, do not let him open panel 7A on watch shift 03. He will confuse the wiring and create a reverse polarity loop that will damage the sonar array. Secure panel with tag 113. Observe until end of watch. I recognized Lane's handwriting in the margin because he used a squiggly L.
The instruction had a timestamp 3 days into the future and an SV signature that matched accounts labeled Argus_CRT_future. This time, I did not go to the chief alone. I found Lane and asked him if he planned to touch panel 7A on that shift. He blinked, hesitant. Me? Why would I? I'm not supposed to do that, right? He said. He frowned, as if a memory shifted. Later, when his watch came up, Lane stood near the panel and did not touch it. He said nothing until after the watch. Then he went to the captain and asked for a transfer to a later patrol. We were quiet about the reason. The instructions had an odd quality. They didn't tell you to be careful. They told you the future as if it were history. They warned. They softened us. They made us small in a way that felt unnatural. We obeyed like children obey a parent who says don't touch, but a parent who also knew your name from the future. Human beings hate being told what they'll do before they do it. We tried to break it. I wrote back to the packet, not on the ship's secure net, that was monitored, but in the forensic lab. I composed a short note and signed it with my name. I sent, "Who are you? How are you sending these? Stop sending crew directives. Stop telling us who to be." It was childish. It felt like throwing a stone through a window. The response arrived 3 hours later, time-stamped 17 hours forward. We are you. We are you that remembers. We are you that wants to survive. We send what we can. We do not know the cause. We cannot stop it from coming. We can only delay. The XO read the printout over my shoulder. The temporary color in his face disappeared. He put the printout into his desk drawer and locked it. "No one talks about this," he said. "No one. You shredded this. You never touched it." Chief Reynolds said nothing. He looked like a man who'd seen strange tides and kept them. He asked me only one question before he left the control room that night. "If this is us, would you rather know or not know?"
I thought of near misses and bolts and the couple of sailors we'd saved from a snapped ladder. I said nothing. The truth felt like a stone in my throat. The chief grunted and walked away. The sea hummed. The packets never stopped. They increased in frequency as if urgency created demand. They started to recommend surgeries, replace this soft mount on Hull Bay 4, evacuate Lieutenant Serrano on 2043-0702 for decompression complaint, secure the forward missile fairing on day 11. Some instructions saved people's lives. Some caused confusion and resentment. Men began to call them the future memos. Others whispered that we were the ones sending them, that we were in a loop, and the ship kept chewing its own tail. Rumors corroded the bunks. Lane transferred off the boat. Lieutenant Serrano refused evacuation and then took sick leave for 2 months. Later, he returned, gaunt and thin. A petty officer named Morales started drinking in the berthing, and one night he put his hand against the hull and swore he felt a knocking from below, a slow, impatient triple that matched the pattern printed on one of the packets. "It's the hull," he muttered, like someone's tapping on a wall to get out. The next watch, he disappeared. They said he fell asleep on the external maintenance ladder and wasn't clipped in. We found his handprint on the ladder later. It was faded, as if time had rubbed it out. The captain convened a quiet meeting. He told us we were to stop reacting emotionally. He told us to verify packets and to send all questionable files to Navy Lab 8. In other words, to hand everything off and let someone else be scared. But it was already ours. The future memos touched us like a current. We had a role now, a duty to obey a voice we could not explain. Obedience felt like both a blessing and a sentence. I found a memo dated 3 weeks ahead. Emergency. The memos will cease at T+21.
Someone will have to write the last packet. Choose wisely. It peppered like a rumor through the mess. Men argued that we should refuse and let events happen, that we were playing God. Others argued that history was a cold teacher and the packets were a tool. Sleeping became impossible. The night shift kept expecting the sound of someone typing in the dark. On the 20th day of the memos, the captain called a muster. The control room and chief's mess were full. He spoke steady as only a man who has to make the hard choices can. We were given a strange gift, he said. It saved us. It damned us, sure. It tells us who to be. But it saved us from things I would rather not imagine. There is a final packet coming. Someone will have to author it. That means whoever writes it will be the one who closes the loop and makes the future they write. You understand? A long silence. I saw hands tighten on coffee mugs. Lane's replacement stood in the doorway, jaw clenched. The XO said the words none of us wanted to. If we do not write the final one, we do not know what future arrives. If we do, we choose the cost. We had become an organism that fed on its own possibility. The memos were a symbiosis. We were given answers and paid in uncertainty. The captain looked at me. Maybe he looked at a younger version of himself. "Ethan," he said, "we need volunteers." I volunteered because I wanted to sleep again, because I didn't want more of us to vanish on ladders and in corridors, because perhaps in some corner of my life I liked the idea that my hands could be useful in a way that mattered. I lied about being brave. I told myself the future is not fate, that the last packet could be a careful blueprint to save more lives and not a curse. They set a sterile bay and a laptop with no external comms. We wrote on an offline kernel so there would be no trace to the open fleet. The chief sat across from me. The captain sat to my left. We had one night, and the clock ticked like an unkind thing. "What do you want?" the captain asked. "Less loss," I said. My voice was thin. "We tell them to dismantle the loop. We destroy the archive. We tell them what to do in the next 48 hours to get off grid and sever the route. We tell them who survives." The chief steepled his hands. "And if the loop is what keeps us alive right now?"
"Then we die," I said. "But maybe we don't die screaming on stairwells. Maybe we die believing we didn't make the choice. We drafted the packet like a civilian writing a will, with precision and cruelty. It contained clear mechanical instructions, which bolts to secure, which pumps to decouple, the order of operations if the loop failed. It contained the human stuff too. Reorder brig duty so Morales isn't left alone on the ladder. Rotate watch assignments to prevent fatigue. Transfer Lane off the boat after he signs a confidentiality addendum. It concluded with the real instruction, the one we trembled over. At T+21, write the following. We end the memos. We will not send maintenance forward in time. We close the loop. Leave automated triggers in place to save immediate life, but destroy the archive and sever the future/maintenance endpoint. Signed, Argus/CRT/last. We printed it. We saved it to an air-gapped drive. We burned the write session log. We drank coffee until dawn. I felt hollow in the way men feel after fasting. At 3 a.m. the next morning, the network flagged a packet from within our own air-gapped drive. The timestamp read T+21. It was the last packet. We had written it. No surprise there. We loaded it into the ship's maintenance scheduler, and then did what the captain had ordered, erased the archive, isolated Hermes, and severed the local directories that mapped to future/maintenance. For 24 hours, nothing happened. Then the packets resumed, not less frequent, not different, only now the signatures were mine. The author hash resolved to my login. I stared at the printout until the words blurred. I had thought we closed the loop. Instead, I had sealed it in my own hands. I had written a future that wrote back to me,
My own voice came to me as a packet from a future I had already written. Chief Reynolds looked at me over the table and then put his hand on my shoulder. He said the only thing he could. We did what we had to. We made a choice. We stayed with the boat. We kept patching, logging, rotating watches. Men kept vanishing in small, private ways. Morales came back one day and said little, his eyes empty as a depth gauge. Lane's transfer was approved, but he called home and never left. Lieutenant Serrano returned gaunt and wouldn't talk about the 14 days he took off. The captain retired early, and the XO decided to make himself less available. I kept printing the memos and storing them in the manila folder under my mattress. Sometimes, late at night, I would open one and read the future like a lover's letter and feel both comforted and sick. The memos had saved us again and again. They had broken us in turn. The price of knowledge was the knowledge itself. Now, years later, a little older, I still wake up to the feeling of being tapped from the other side of the metal. I still hear the soft clack of a keyboard in the empty hours, even though they say our systems are clean. I still find a random maintenance packet slipped into a printer tray at some offices I visit, a phantom, unsigned, with a timestamp 10 hours ahead. Sometimes I think about burning the manila folder. Sometimes I think about handing it to a scientist or a priest or a lawyer. Often I think, who are we if the future is something we can order for our own convenience? Are we more humane or merely more clever at avoiding consequences? The memos did what memos always did. They told us what machine to replace and who to move, and they whispered that the world could be nudged to a different ending. They left us the moral work to decide whether to keep nudging, and maybe the worst thing we did was to make that choice for ourselves. I still answer my phone sometimes at odd hours, waiting for a packet to arrive. I think the boat is still out there under the ice, some name scratched into the keel, and somewhere on a dark watch, somebody else is reading an instruction that says simply, replace the coupling, don't look up. If you ever serve on a ship that begins talking to tomorrow, listen to the rules, print the messages, fix the parts that will kill your people, and remember this, every time you save someone by reading what they will do, you also make yourself an author of their future. You sit in the seat that writes their choices. That is heavy work. It will make you tired. It will make you small. So keep your headset close. And if you ever see a timestamp in the future that knows your name, put the paper under your mattress and sleep on it one night. Let it let you decide whether you want to be saved by a voice you cannot verify. I wish I could tell you the memos ended. I wish I could tell you they taught us mercy. I can only tell you this. We learned to live with the tapping and the knowledge that somewhere, sometime, we had written the hands that would hold us. And sometimes, in the long hum of a ship at depth, I still swear I can hear my own writing answering me back.